Howdy, folks. This is Ted Lasso, your favorite optimistic American football coach turned English football coach. And welcome to the Richmond Way, a Ted Lasso Rewatch podcast. So grab your biscuits, put on your AFC Richmond scarf, and let's embark on this journey together.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome back
Hello.
to the Richmond Way. Hello.
Hi.
With us are, as per usual, we got Dani, we got Mike, and then we got our friend here, Mr. Tony Curtis, joining us.
Hello.
Bra Meets World.
Welcome
to the Richmond Way.
Guys, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I'm so excited to be here for the first episode of season 2. A lot of interesting things happening in this episode that I know are going to affect the rest of the season. So this is a great episode for me to jump into.
And we're excited to have you. And
Absolutely.
For people that may not know, there actually is a connection between the series Boy Meets World and Ted Lasso.
You don't say.
And that
Is it
connection,
Feeney?
kind of, sort of. that connection is Mr. Bill Lawrence, who wrote an episode of season 1 of Boy Meets World that was episode 11. It was called The Father-Son Game, which in and of itself is kind of interesting that he would write that episode when the whole father stuff on Ted Lasso is like such a poignant thing. So I thought it might be interesting, like what. Now you guys talked about that in Boy Meets World. So what in that kind of stood out to you that you now are still seeing in Ted Lasso?
I've been a big Bill Lawrence fan forever. I call him Billy L because we go back.
Billy L.
And me and Billy L, I've been a big fan of his for a long time. I followed a lot of his shows, and it's really interesting that you can kind of see his writer voice kind of come through in the different projects that he's worked on. And that specific Boy Meets World episode is such like a, I don't know, there's so much about it that gives me Ted Lasso vibes. Obviously, the father-son connection is really strong, but, in the first season of Boy Meets World, baseball was a really center part of that show and for the main character. And, the way that sports kind of plays a part in that episode, I think kind of mirrors a lot of what we're seeing in Ted Lasso too. So just a lot of overlaps in the way he uses family, the way he uses these themes that kind of come up again and again.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, he's a good. I mean, and I saw BBC Maestro as a thing right now. It's kind of like that masterclass stuff where you can basically take like a class to learn how to write that Bill Lawrence teaches you. So if anybody wants to learn how to write like Bill Lawrence, there you go. Yeah. Now I thought it'd be fun too, since you're on with us, to kind of think about or kind of brainstorm. I don't know what the right word for that would be, but maybe just like what Boy Meets World characters, Girl Meets World characters, that universe are similar or kind of have similar archetypes to our Ted Lasso characters that we've met. I mean, I feel like the obvious one is like Feeney and Ted Lasso, because teaching lessons and whatnot. But
yeah, definitely. There's especially with some of the monologues that Ted will give to the team in the locker room, things like that. A lot of those feel like the Feeney lessons that we got over the years. So I think that's a great matchup. Nice. I'll also throw one out and say, I think Roy Kent gives out Sean Hunter vibes to me. It's just like
I was thinking
bad
that.
boy.
Yeah. I was
Heart of gold.
Too. And then I almost Eric and Jamie Tart.
Yes.
The good looking kind of maybe dim character.
He has a lot of Eric vibes. He also has a lot of Matt Lawrence joins the show in season 5 as Jack Hunter, and he has a lot of Jack Hunter vibes too, actually. So I think there's an interesting crossover there.
And then I think for Topanga, I would almost say season 1 Topanga, Keeley, and then maybe season 4 Topanga 2 is a little bit Keeley as well, but then like the other seasons around that,
going in deep now,
Topanga would be closest to like maybe like Rebecca.
I have to agree with that, and I'm so happy you made the distinction between season 1 Topanga and the rest of Topanga, because they're two different characters. But yeah, towards the end of the series, she becomes very serious and driven. Obviously, Rebecca has a lot of other qualities to her, but just both of them kind of embodying that girl boss vibe.
Yeah. And I was almost gonna say Minkus and Higgins.
Minkus.
A little bit.
Minkus and Higgins. Oh, okay, I could see that a little bit.
I go more Minkus than Nate personally, but
because sometimes Minkus is a little bit of the smartass, and Nate kind of has those qualities too, especially as we approach villain era Nate, which I'm so excited for.
Oh yeah, yes. You guys think of any others that like just kind of?
It's been so long since I've watched Boy Meets World. It's kind of remember.
It's also such a fun exercise to try to match two shows together like this. Like, I've never done anything like this before. But one thing I will say is that Coach Beard gives off somewhat of a Feeney vibe too. Like, he's just very like neutral. He's there, he's listening, he's nodding. He's not really escalating the conflict at all. So some quality overlaps there as well.
Yeah, I would say that too. Actually, I'd maybe put a little bit of Dani with Eric there too.
Oh yeah.
Just because they both have like a joy for life in general. So, but yeah, I don't know if any more come up during it, we can just yell them out.
If one pops in my head,
yeah, just yell it out. See, I do a comedy class sometimes, and we talk about character archetypes and how those play into comedies. And then when you know what kind you're trying to play, then you can look at that. So I'm trying to think of like, oh yeah, the archetypes in Boy Meets World and all of that. But I can't think of any more necessarily that overlap. I do have the humblest opinion, and maybe it's controversial, that Topanga was too good for Corey.
Oh, that's not a humble opinion at all. We are hardcore on the Corey Matthews is trash train on our podcast. One of the original advocates for that. I also, like Amy, asked Topanga, you should have just gone to Yale. I'm team Yale 100%. So, obviously a different show for a different podcast, but I'm glad that we see eye to eye on this, buddy.
Yeah, I was like, she's too good.
Underpants. Actually, speaking of that, I would almost put like the Keeley and Roy relationship as like the Topanga Corey relationship comp with this, just because only I feel like the Roy Keeley one should have worked out, spoilers, whereas maybe the Corey and Topanga one should not have. Well, Girl Meets World says it didn't. I don't know. Or maybe did.
I meant
I don't acknowledge Girl Meets World as canon, but that's just me personally.
It has two more.
I couldn't get into it.
I only watched the episodes where the characters from Boy Meets World showed up.
Same, and it felt like the magic was lost.
Yeah.
The casting choice for their daughter, though, I said that looks like she looks like she could be their kid. Like, that looks like their faces smushed together. When I first saw it, I went, oh, that's really good casting.
That's so funny, because I remember thinking that Topanga and Sabrina Carpenter actually looked a lot alike.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
And that's where
when she was younger.
Yeah, now that everybody knows who Sabrina Carpenter is, I was like, I remember when she was on Girl Meets World. And I would be like, I remember.
Farm remembers.
You guys remember when Corey and Topanga's daughter was a spy kid? Remember that?
Was a spy kid.
Yes.
Once a spy kid, always a spy kid.
So
Shark Boy in lava.
Jumped in, jumped out.
Yeah. So Tony said this earlier. So this is for season 2, episode 1. Goodbye, Earl. This aired like a year after the season 1 finale. So it was like July 23rd of 2021. And then the brief synopsis for this one was AFC Richmond brings in a sports psychologist to help the team overcome their unprecedented 7-game tie streak, and Ted is surprised by the immediate results. Roy discovers a new life as a retired footballer. Rebecca begins dating and discovers she doesn't want to settle for just anyone. And it was written by Coach Beard himself, Mr. Brendan Hunt. So season also opens on Nate's eyes, and we talked about this in season 1 where it opened on Rebecca's eyes. Well, actually opened on the ball sack. We always have to acknowledge that. But then the first face that it's on is Rebecca's face. So, overall impressions. What did you guys think of this? What did you guys think of this first episode of season 2?
I forgot so much about it. Like,
Yeah.
even though I've seen it several times, watching it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that happened. Wait, that happened." Like, oh man, I just did not remember like anything from this episode other than goodbye, Earl.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part, but I also forgot this was the episode with Roy's speech and about lightning, which is one of the best scenes in the whole show, in my humblest opinions. You know, I'm not going to say my opinions are humble. They're not. I'm just going to own it loud and proud. I think that's one of like the best lines of it. And I forgot that was in this episode. And I went, oh yeah. So it was just, I like it. I think there were some really good moments in this and some that were very meaningful for me, having been through some of that. And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
TBD.
TBD.
To be discussed.
I really liked this episode as a season 2 opener. You know, I always think it's such a challenge to go into a season 2 of a show in general, because the pressure is always to kind of expand that world, kind of expand the characters a little bit. And sometimes shows can get a little, can lose sight of who these characters were initially. But I feel like this show does a really great job of setting up things that kind of have been seeds in the previous season. So like the whole mental health and sports aspect with Ted and Dr. Fieldstone coming in. We kind of knew how much his divorce was bothering him in season 1, but to see that come back in season 2 and to see how that's going to grow is going to be really interesting. And Rebecca and her dating journey getting introduced, and you know, Nate's villain era, as I mentioned, like all these things are really good setup for a season. So I think that there's you know, as far as like episode 1 of a season goes, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like you're saying a little bit already, like about Nate, like so like this whole like opening too with, you know, like the, you know, like the slow motion thing with like the, you know, like the pigeon flying, and
so
Dani.
Funny, by the way.
Yeah.
So funny, the cold open of the show.
Yeah, like how they make it like super dramatic. Like,
Oh, John Woo.
Football is life. And what was funny is when I was watching this, my mini schnauzer was sitting next to me, and she heard Earl on the TV like making dog sounds, and she was like, "Wait, what? What's going on?" So she like lifted her head up and started watching that. I was like, "Sylvie, you might want to look away shortly in a second." But like they have this whole like thing in there too, like about, it's like, is it okay if I pray? It's like, yeah, do whatever you want. It's like, and then Beard's like, cross your fingers and make a wish. And then I like how, I mean, after, you know, what ensues there.
How fast was that ball going?
I mean,
How fast was the dog going?
yeah,
Right, like my lord,
it's all
the
timed-
dog's ancient. Like,
timed perfectly.
I don't think we saw a dog murder. I think we saw a dog suicide, if I'm being real. That dog headed exactly for where that ball was going.
Yeah, there's like, I see my chance. I'm gonna make it look like Dani did it, but in reality, it was my choice. But
Either that or
just say
fate,
bye.
because we're like the logic of how this could have gone. That dog was destined for this.
yeah, sometimes funny thing about coincidence.
how shitty was
sometimes
that
they just
leash
happen.
too? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Breakingham Palace, maybe. But yeah,
break,
then I like just
Breaking
how
Bad Palace.
Nate's just like, I promise that's not what I wished for. Are you sure, Nate?
Great
Ooh,
moment right there to just
Yeah,
make
are
it
you
funny. Great writing.
He probably wished it was Colin.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Or Will? Yeah.
Or Will.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I forgot actually that Nate like was like almost like right away, kind of a dick in this.
Well, it's such a shame too, because like he was so humble last season, and then obviously he got promoted in the finale of season 1, and it seems like it got to his head immediately. It seems like throughout the episode it's very like seasoned in. It's not overdone, but he'll just say something or make a suggestion that clearly crosses Ted's boundary where he has to like shut it down, but he does it in a very nice way. He keeps encouraging him to like contribute, but you can just tell that Nate's approach is very different from Ted's.
Yeah, Nate doesn't know any better. Like, he's never been in this position, so he falls back to what was done to him.
It's true.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
But hurt people can also go to therapy.
Yeah.
Nah.
And sometimes hurt people do it with scissor hands or knife hands.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Bonnie, because obviously therapy is coming into and being introduced to Ted's life, and that's something that Ted is working on, which eventually kind of helps his relationship with Nate. So it's interesting that it's all kind of happening in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the things that like after that all happens too is I like how like the after that, because obviously they don't show what happens to the dog there either, but or Higgins just like, luckily the thing about being relegated is that not all of our TV or not all of our games are televised.
It's on the internet.
Yeah, Rebecca's like, the internet, the goddamn internet. And yeah,
I was shocked when I found out that the dog died on my initial watch of this. This is my second time seeing the episode. I knew it was coming, but I was like, what? The dog died from a kick to the face? How awful, how horrible. That footage is going around online. Children are seeing this dog dying everywhere.
Yeah. I almost want to look up, but to like see how fast the average like pro footballer like miles per hour. Bonnie's gonna do it. It looks like
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, because I'm wondering that too. Is like how if Dani is one of like the two. Well, now I guess
70 miles per hour.
Okay,
yeah, I'm seeing 40 to 60 miles per hour, 70s, 80s. Yeah.
And yeah, greyhounds are kind of skinny. Like they're pretty. Oh man, Earl. I do not want to know what that. I mean, I guess we saw the cartoon later on, and like how over like dramatic that was with like the blood that hits all over Dani's face. But I do like that in Dani's. This is hopping around, but Dani's dream is like it's a cartoon version of Earl in that.
He's haunted by this dog that he killed. He's having dog nightmares essentially with this cartoon. But one of the things I love about even this storyline is that it's not entirely done for a joke. Here you have Dani who's always saying, football is life, and all of a sudden now football becomes death, which is, obviously a segue to introducing Dr. Fieldstone. But it's nice to know that like it wasn't a dog didn't die in vain. It was for a purpose.
Yeah. it happened so something else would happen, which there's a quote coming up there that I really liked that I want to talk about. But what I thought was funny about this episode is like here we get that Keely line too, where she said, "Don't you fret, Boba Fett." And we did last year we did like a mega Lasso Wars, like Star Wars crossover on our Star Wars podcast, and
so many people.
We made like a special like video for that, and I was like, wait, are like half the clips from that thing that we made from this episode? Because like later we get the Empire mention.
Higgins talking about the Empire.
Yeah, so. it's like this is the Star Wars episode of Ted Lasso. But coming up after that is like Ted's doing that conference, and we got Trent Krim, and I like how now it's kind of like almost like a joke, like on the like in the universe
the
of the
Independent.
Show. Yeah, you're like the Independent. Yeah.
Well, before we get to that, did you notice the Cheers reference?
I did not.
I think it was before that scene where Ted walks in the room and everyone's like, Ted. Like, we surprise because of how his uncle is and all that we mention all the time.
Oh yeah, it's true. I think there's
Uncle
a few
Norm
Cheers.
from Cheers. So
Yeah.
Uncle Norm.
I think Bill Lawrence loves a unison joke. I feel like this is something I've seen in a lot of his projects where the joke or the punchline to the joke is a group ensemble saying of some sort. So I think that's a device that he likes to use.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, now that I think about it, there's been a few of those, and really, it's fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It creates that sense of friendship and community. I feel like he, I was a big fan of Cougar Town. I don't know if you guys watched that Bill Lawrence show. I also watched, Scrubs and, a few of his other shows.
I think I've watched half an
speaking
episode
of Community,
of Cougar Town.
Danny Pudi's character Abed was a big fan of Cougar Town.
Exactly. That's actually how I got into it. Funny enough, was through Community. But through that, I just realized that he writes friend groups really well. He always writes groups that you want to be a part of. And part of that is this idea that like we're thinking the same thing, we're saying it at the same time, which is like a great device to show like, true friendship outside of what's been built within the confines of the show.
Yeah. That's always a good way of like show not tell, which is always like a better way about it.
Yes.
But I was going to say, before we move too far away from it, the don't you fret with it, I almost feel like you probably say that on a daily basis, Bonnie, or something.
I do. I put that in the notes that I forgot that I got that from this episode, and I say it sometimes. Then I heard it and I went, oh, that's where that came from. Because I've said it a lot and I forgot where it came from. And I'm like, did I get that from somebody I know? And a couple of people get things from me. So I forgot that's where it came from, and it made me laugh. I was like, oh yeah, I say that, or some sort of variation of that. Ha 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 is what I type.
You got that from your buddy Juno Teffel. So
yeah. My girl, my buddy,
just hang out in Fargo together, do your thing.
Yeah, just like you do,
right.
As you
what else does it do?
I don't know. Hang out with you can hang out with Martin Freeman there in Fargo too if you wanted to.
Fargo.
Yeah. So yeah, Trent Krim, brings him the heat, asks him like this tough question about Dani killing the dog, basically. And Ted,
murdering
as he proved to do. So I took this part of the quote because I really liked it, because you can tell it's Ted also. He's talking about the dog, but he's also not talking about the dog at the same time. Where he's like, it's funny to think about the things in your life.
It's funny to think about the things in your life that can make you cry. Just knowing that they existed can then become the same thing that make you cry, knowing that they're now gone. I think those things come into our lives help us get from one place to a better one. And I hope we helped Earl do just that. We're going to miss him around here a whole bunch.
That can make you cry. Just knowing that they existed can then become the same thing that make you cry, knowing that they're now gone. I think those things come into our lives to help us get from one place to a better place. And I was like, God damn it, Ted, why you gotta make me cry every single time you these little isms that you do, and you punch me right in the face with emotions, you son of a bitch.
The isms.
Because they know somebody needs to hear it.
Yeah, the writing is always so good during those monologue scenes, but I'm always really impressed with the way Jason Sudeikis performs this as well, because I feel like you could insert so many other actors there that are of a great caliber, but would make Ted's performance seem corny or seem unauthentic. But with Ted, it just feels so raw and real, and you feel like you're getting an authentic story from him in a way that I'm buying it. Even the biggest skepticism that is experienced in the room, you get flashes of the other reporters and stuff, and they're all like slowly coming around to Ted as he slowly tells the story. So he just does such a great job with performance.
I always picture him as John Bovey half the time. It's SNL. I can't get that out of my head.
Yeah, well, I mean, or like the what's up with that, especially when he's doing the dance there.
The dancing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, and you're like, where like Ted will do like the kind of like some like small or like the bigger kind of idea speeches like that, and then like Higgins will say similar, like kind of endearing kind of things like that, but they're usually like, it's like a shorter like sentence or two here. But I always think, especially in this rewatch, is like how kind of like maybe underrated Higgins is, like just, I don't know what the best way to, just like his like emotional maturity, like on stability, maturity on like on the show, for like where he's coming from. Usually when he comes in on like with like any of the Diamond Dogs kind of like conversations or stuff like that, or like he usually is backing up Ted in a different way, or speaking to someone and like trying to help them out, maybe telling them something that they might not want to hear necessarily. So I like kind of like the dichotomy between Ted and Higgins, both being able to kind of say like these things that can be helpful from like different places, but at like kind of different levels of the way that they're coming at from it. So just always appreciate that about both of those characters on there.
I mean, in so many ways, Higgins mirrors the optimism that Ted has. And Ted almost makes it okay for Higgins to kind of lean into that. I think that so many people are always kind of rolling their eyes at Ted, that it's nice to see a character who is appreciative of what Ted brings to a room.
Yeah.
Yeah, Higgins definitely bought in quick and appreciated Ted.
Yeah, they became close friends pretty quickly there after he came into Richmond. And then so like after this too, we go to Dani, or he's taking his depression shower, which I think is like is
it really a depression shower?
Well, there's like an official shower? There's an official GIF that like an official Ted Lasso GIF that was made, that it just says in it, it's like in brackets, and it says depression shower. And it's Dani in that shower doing that. So that's the reason why I called that. But I also end up using from the same scene, there's like another GIF that I use a lot, where it's that scene where Ted like turns around, is like it's like basically like that cringe smile where he just like turns around, he's like, oh man. I've used that anytime we've had like technical difficulties now with like posting anything. I'm just like, well, that's a good picture to use for it. But I don't know. I forget until we do these rewatch episodes, like where some of like gifts that I've ended up using now from the show, like how many of them come from like one specific thing. But like, I don't, like, what do you guys think of like this whole part of the?
Only thing I'll say is like Dani's situation kind of had Ted rattled, in my opinion. He didn't really know how to help because it's too real for him in a way.
Yeah.
I think also Ted was.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was done.
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that Ted was far more ready to believe in the superstition of the yips than he was to kind of think that there was a mental health issue at play.
You're not supposed to say the Y word.
You know what it is, don't we, Coach?
What you talking about, Willis? Hey, you're not supposed to say that out loud.
Which is why I wrote it down. The yips.
Shh. What are the yips?
Are you kidding me, you two?
We don't say the Y word out loud, you understand? It's like saying Macbeth in a theater, or Voldemort at Hogwarts, or
soccer in England.
Bingo.
Oh. Sorry.
You gotta.
You just gotta hold it up in front of your face the whole time from now on.
I know, yeah.
All right.
No, it's true. I think he'd rather believe that than the other, like getting help from a therapist because of his current situation with therapists, his childhood situation with the lack of therapists.
Mm-hmm.
Also, being a sports guy, I feel like superstition plays a massive part in sports and with athletes and things like that. So I feel like, superstition was probably something that was normalized for Ted probably earlier on, more so than therapy was.
Yeah. I mean, because we had like the whole thing in season 1 with like burning all of the stuff because of the haunted medical room, where we need more ghosts, right, Dani?
Always more ghosts.
And then also, yeah, was Jan Moss not in season 1?
No. If he was with the
so
background
is this
player.
Jan Moss's first appearances in this episode?
First
I
one
guess
with
not.
lines, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might have been like again in the background here or there. Can't say for sure.
But yeah, well, if this is like his first on screen, or I guess just if it's his first speaking line, I do like that kind of like introduction to him here too, where he's like basically just being like super honest. He's like, no, we didn't. You played poorly. No, I played well.
Yeah.
And that's like how Sam's explaining. He's like, no, Jan Moss is just being Dutch, so he's not being mean. But and then.
Oh, can I say something about that moment too? Because I feel like it's really close. And forgive me, because I don't know all of the team members' names. But there's a moment where Ted says, see you Goldfish on Monday, and the teammate asks about it, and it's kind of a reminder of Ted's speech from the finale about how goldfish have low memories, and as goldfish, that's kind of a metaphor for our team forgetting our mistakes quickly, which I love that premise. I don't know if that comes back into season 2 at all, but the fact that it was mentioned in season 1 and then again in season 2, it just made me think that maybe that's a theme that I don't recall if it comes back again, but it was interesting.
And according to IMDb, this was the first appearance of Jan Moss.
There we go.
Credited appearance.
The more you know. And the next part is I'll let Mike take, because it's the whole joke about being unlucky in the New York Jets.
Oh, I mean, I don't
That's
think
right.
the New York Jets are unlucky. I think they just stink.
There you go.
I mean, you can't really say it's bad luck when your ownership and your all that just screwed you at every turn. But again, I'm not a Jets fan, so they just stink. It's nothing to do with luck. They just stink.
Plus, they also have the ass hat that is Aaron Rodgers on their team. So
Yes and no. He hasn't shown up yet, and the coach is like, I don't know what you want me to say. So again, is it luck or is it you did it to yourself?
You got stuck under a 5G tower. But yeah, so and then this is where Nate is like being a dick to Will at this part, where like
Will says, can I leave to go to my mom's birthday? Can I leave early? And Nate says, what position on the team does your mom play? And I said, holy shit, Nate, that's such like a shade bird. Like it's so shady for him to say that. And I love that Ted immediately is like, whoa, tell her happy birthday. Like we're here for her. It was very like funny the way that Nate said it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It would have been kind of funny if Will was just like, oh, she plays on the position of team where it's like, go F yourself. That's what
yeah,
like,
something.
Just like, but now I don't remember, like, oh yeah, I think this was like the whole scene like after that where like Ted goes up to talk, and it's with like Higgins and Keely and and Rebecca up there. Yeah, and they're talking about Earl Greyhound up there, which I love the name of Earl Greyhound, because I like just how it's like, a nice little other nod to tea again, with Earl Grey. But and then there's all like these, I think it's later in the season where there's more of these like the dog names when they try to get like a puppy greyhound, but like the Barkingham Palace here for like one of the dog puns. And then this is also like, again, where like that Empire Strikes Back, explaining Luke and Leia kissing to his kids.
I should go. I promised the boys would watch Empire Strikes Back tonight, and I have to get my thoughts together for when they ask about Luke and Leia making out. Wish me luck.
So, may the force be with you.
And also with you.
Have we mentioned at all that Goodbye Earl is a Dixie Chick song?
I didn't know that, so no.
Oh yeah, a very famous Dixie Chick song about a woman killing her abusive husband. But that's where the title of this episode comes from.
Nice.
Did not know that.
Well, not nice for what the song is about.
Sure.
Well, maybe it is because he deserved it.
That's also true.
Mm-hmm.
That's also true.
So that's what I like to call a good for her.
Good.
Like women revenge movies, like good for her.
Put like an animated. put an animated like After Effects thing over here. It's like the more you know, but it's like good for her. Like,
Good for her.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Bill Lawrence uses that a lot in Scrubs, the more you know thing.
That's
Mhm.
true.
At least several times, at least. I can't say a lot. I should change that to several times.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's like the first time like we're like Higgins, not Higgins, but with Keely and Rebecca, they're kind of like looking at Rebecca's phone for like the text that she's getting, and Ted's like wondering what's going on. He's like, oh, never mind. And just like, I guess I can't be a part of this right now. But I like we get that slow kind of this like introduction to that throughout like this episode. It's like peppered in here. We get a little bit later on. But then I like how that the transition from that, it like cuts to that close up of Roy yelling and coaching. He's got a nice thicker beard now. And then you're like, oh, okay, he's coaching. And then it pans on, you can see that he's coaching his niece.
Did anyone actually
Phoebe's.
believe he was coaching anything other than kids? When they
I
first
figured it
watched
was like a setup for something like that. It wasn't going to be like another team.
Oi, you listen to me. You play like that next week, you can kiss the trophy goodbye. Because today, you will play like a bunch of little pricks. You hear me?
Yes, Coach!
Except for Kokoruda. Way to put your body on the line out there.
You know it, Coach!
All right.
Well, can I say something actually right before we cut to Roy and his game? Ted is talking to Keely and he's like, hey, just a reminder, I save a ticket for Roy for every game. Like if he's ever free, if he's ever available. And that's when she kind of talks about him being busy. But it's so clear that Ted misses Roy and he misses that friendship and that relationship. And I think that's something that he was kind of hoping would still keep going even after Roy left the team. But unfortunately, Roy just really wants to distance himself. So I just thought that was a nice little touch to kind of show that Ted is missing him.
Mhm.
How do you think Ted gets Roy the names for the tickets? Is it through Keely, or does he just text him these names and Roy never responds?
I think it's a weekly text message thread that Roy ignores. He ignores.
What were they? It was Shania Twain,
Reba McEntire, I think.
I don't think that one was yet.
That's why I remember.
Yeah, I think one of them was Alanis Morissette, which I think is the second like Alanis Morissette reference on this show. So you gotta have.
Don't remember
God,
exactly. I
have God in the background, but I do like that they're all, or no, one of them is Dolly Parton. So they're like all female like country singers, which I thought was kind of funny. The least connective tissue you'd think to Roy Kent. So, but which you stop talking about Roy with that too, is that I think that's a little bit more on Roy too, where it's like, and he even like says it to like Keely when they're talking a little bit later, like how he has this whole like yoga moms like group, which is basically like essentially his Diamond Dogs with the yoga moms.
Yeah, because they don't know who he is.
Yeah, because they don't know who he is. He can basically just kind of be Roy and whatnot.
Well, the thing also that Keely kind of calls him out on is like, hey, those group of friends, not only do they not know who you are, but she was kind of getting like, they're not going to know what's going on in your life to challenge you, to kind of question to see if you need help. Yeah. Like, and she was kind of saying like, you don't have any real friends. Like you just watch TV shows with these girls. Like it's nothing of substance.
Yeah. Right. He doesn't like to be too close to anybody. Like he just kind of likes to be basically Roy by himself. I mean, that's stuff he's gonna have to deal with like this season and like later on in season 3 and even up to the finale of season 3 until he like finally kind of sort of realizes that and has to like face that and like really deal with it with Sharon, who we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, I like this whole scene here with like Phoebe and her soccer team. And I noticed that he's got a plastic whistle there too. So like even right now, I don't know if they had planned it already, but he has the plastic whistle.
He didn't blow it either.
Allergic, so. Yeah. I mean, that's what she said. But or he said.
Like, think about with Roy not letting people in. It's kind of like what Rebecca says near the end of the episode, like trusting people, letting people in. That's all I think, part of it. And when you have that tough guy persona, I love characters like this that are super tough on the outside and inside they're kind of vulnerable softies, maybe because I relate a little bit. Or Raphael is my favorite Ninja Turtle. I don't know. That could be part of it. But like that idea of you let people in and you get hurt, so it's easier just to like kind of keep people out. And you can see that chipping away at Roy ever so slightly. And I love those moments where he's like just super sweet and it makes for such an interesting character dynamic versus I'm just like that all the time. It's a well-rounded, thought out, well-written character in that sense. So I just want to throw that in there that connects to later. Yeah.
So glad you said that, Bonnie. And I yes, there's the connection between Rebecca and Roy in that sense of kind of fearing intimacy, but you could almost say that like, Ted's scarred from his divorce, and like, yes, he's really personable, but he's trying to gain intimacy in a different way. And like, even everyone who he kind of has interactions with has their own kind of weight that they carry when it comes to like being open and letting new people into their life. So it's kind of a theme amongst all the characters of the show, really.
Yep, absolutely.
Ted's always very surface level for me with a lot of people, and that's I don't see him getting past that in this series. Like maybe he does, maybe he doesn't in other people's lives, but I feel like that was a big thing is he never really embraced that change throughout the series.
He's more comfortable looking at others than himself.
Yes.
He's more comfortable having a conversation about what are you dealing with versus ever like kind of touching on what he's truly feeling.
Right.
So some people that are like following this, but maybe haven't watched season 3 yet, but I think part of the thing too in like the season 3 finale with that kind of shows that he has grown too is that like, usually like in like this season or like season 1, like he is like a little bit more like emotional about like how he's dealing with like some of that stuff, whereas like when you get to that season 3 finale, like he's kind of grown enough to that point, like where like the episode before that, like he has that conversation with his mom to like finally hash a lot of that stuff out. And then like immediately after that is like the finale episode, and you can see how he's like more I think he has like the least amount of lines in that episode, but that's also because he's more reserved in that at that point, because like he knows that he doesn't have to deflect things with a joke at that point. Like he's sincere in like the choice he's made. So like even like when it's going a lot into that episode, but like that's like I can see that he has progressed a bit when you get to that episode, just because of the way like he's not having to like make jokes about like all this stuff and having to leave everybody behind, where he's just like being sincere about it. He's sad, but he's not like outwardly sad about it, because he has like a focused determination about like what he's already decided to do at that point.
Yeah, versus like the times where you feel like he's talking for the sake of, telling a story, or talking for the sake of directing the conversation in a place where it makes him feel comfortable. Yeah. He feels open to whatever may come, whether it be comfortable or not comfortable. He's just he has a peace of mind that he didn't possess before.
Yeah, he doesn't like the loud silence. Get rid of the silence.
Yeah. Fill the silence with random gibberish.
Yeah.
And I think before we move past the Roy scene, unless you guys had any more, there was I liked the quote in there at I can't recall if it was his sister, or I don't think it was, or it was just like one of the soccer moms, or sorry, football moms. You can't call them little pricks even when they're being little pricks. So I just
like that he has that one girl putting her body on the line for youth sports.
He's like, I respect that. Yeah, and then we have Dani's animated Greyhound nightmare. Football is death, and Dani's also in bed with two women. So
good for him.
Good job, Dani. Good job.
Good for him.
Yeah,
it's like one of the last scenes of the show too. Is him with two of them.
Yeah, so maybe it's the same too.
It's his brand.
Yeah,
maybe he's a Mormon.
He's got 2 aces in bed with him. There you go. but
and even that won't make him feel better. He was trying to feel better, and that didn't work.
They didn't seem to care. They were sound asleep.
Completely undisturbed by a man screaming in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's that. The next scene there too is like where Ted goes back and he's talking to Rebecca. When he comes up there, she has gotten a text from who we'll find out later, and she's disappointed that it's not Keely. And the line here I thought was really funny. It's like, I haven't seen someone that disappointed to see me since I wore a red baseball cap to a Planned Parenthood fundraiser. I was like, yeah. I was like, you kind of just have to retire red hats after a certain year, Ted. You can't wear red hats anymore, man.
Can you imagine? We haven't seen anything like this since OJ ruined the Bronco. Yeah. I mean, it's really been devastating for all of our red hat week. Eventually. Yeah.
They're ugly as sin, but they came back.
I guess maybe give red hats enough time. I don't know.
40 years.
They'll make their comeback. Yeah.
Yeah. But sorry, Cincinnati Reds fans.
They have the white logo on the front. They
have a red hat with white lettering on it. So
they can change it to red, white hat with red lettering.
But yeah, I just thought that was funny. But then there's this whole girl talk / girl listen.
Mm-hmm.
Scene.
It's how girls talk. It's true.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because sometimes, so sometimes girls just need to talk about how they're feeling, and that's how we work through it. And that's when it becomes like an I'm talking, you listen. We don't necessarily do it because we want to hear solutions or we want our problem solved. We talk it out to our people, to our community, and that helps us solve it. It just makes us feel better. Then we can think more clearly about it. So I was like, no, this is true. This is how girls work through this stuff. That's why we're always talking to each other. That's why we have rap battles in the bathroom and we go to the bathroom in packs. That's what we do.
In the bathroom.
Yeah, sorry. That's the secret is that's what girls do.
I thought you guys just like held each other over the seat. That's why you went together.
No,
I also love the idea of girls beatboxing to cover up the sound of poops in the bathroom.
Yep. Beatboxing, rap battles. That's what we do in the bathroom. It is not. That's a secret for girl code that I'll let you fellas in on. Yep, that's what we do.
But why is the girls' room always way messier than the men's room?
It's not, and that's a lie.
I've had to clean bathrooms for a living once.
Well, okay, I will say that any bathroom of mine has not been disgusting, but I have seen some terrifying men's restrooms. And by that, 100%, I mean like
but it's to be expected.
Guys who live alone or have roommates. I have seen terrible
I'm talking about public,
things.
Not personal. Public.
Every public men's room I've ever been in has been against my will, and it's always a little wet. Why?
Yeah.
Why is it always a little bit wet on the floor? Ew.
Water is dripping. Looks like Van Damme kicked in a door.
Yeah, definitely.
Not Zero, Van Damme.
You know, Bonnie, you were talking about Ted kind of being there, and he seems to want to provide a solution. He's like, well, there's no solution for me to provide, so everything's fine, right? And she goes, yeah, I guess there is. Whereas it's interesting that later on, Roy is able to kind of see like, hey, there's actually more going on here than you're letting on in a way that Ted kind of overlooked. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I love that Roy does that because Roy is, I think, also a good bullshit detector.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Ted wasn't in the right headspace to see that, whereas Roy and Rebecca kind of have that tough exterior thing, I think more so than probably anybody else. So he's able to kind of go like, oh, I know what you're doing. Okay.
Mm.
And we all need somebody like that in our friend group. And sometimes we have to be that friend. And that's just how it goes.
Definitely.
I was going to say it earlier when you're talking about like how women and girls are able to do this. I was just like, so what you're saying is that women are better at mental health than men are.
Generally, yes, but we are also a bit more supported in society in those endeavors.
Sure.
That's why they say, like, if you cry, like, oh, quit being a girl. It's like, well, why do you think that's associated with crying? Because that is. It's less shameful for us typically as a gender-wide societal expectation. It's less shameful of us to have those emotions outwardly versus, as you know, I don't have to womansplain it to you. It's a different story for men. And I hope that tide is turning and changing. And I think this show plays a part in having that narrative be a little bit different moving forward.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's trying, but
It's trying.
Mm-hmm.
It's crying. Yeah.
Also, was Bill Lawrence just like getting into therapy at this point? The fact that they play such a big part in the show, and then he goes around and makes Shrinking next. Like, it just seems like therapy has made a big impact on his life.
Him or Brett Goldstein, maybe. Just since Brett Goldstein's like a big writer on Shrinking too.
Okay.
But
I love it either way.
Yeah. Like I do like between Ted Lasso and then like the cast of Ted Lasso being brought to like the White House in the US, you know, to help like push like mental health being like, you know, like a more recognized thing, and like normalizing like people talking about mental health, or like just about like going to therapy, like not being like oh, you have to go to therapy, that sucks that you're like that you're effed up that you have to go to therapy. Like, oh, you can just go to therapy just to go to therapy. You don't necessarily have to be quote unquote effed up. I mean, it can help you to not be. So like, even like, I know Ted didn't have like a really good experience with it, but like, even if like you're in a good relationship, you can go to couples therapy to just make sure that you have a healthy relationship. Even if there's nothing wrong with it, you can go to that.
Well, one of the things I like about the episode and what the show does with Ted is that he's not this like, you know, old-fashioned guy who just thinks that therapy is for crazy people. He's like, no, I actually had an experience in therapy where I was extremely uncomfortable, where I didn't feel like I had a therapist that was there to listen to me. He's coming from a place of like being hurt by therapy versus having some naive understanding of what therapy is, which is an interesting element to his character.
Yeah, I would agree, because a lot of people say like, well, I don't want to go because I don't need it. It's like, well, if you think you don't need it, you probably do, and there's no shame in that, because we all have our baggage, we all have our things. And what I think is interesting is Ted has that background and that experience, and then we find out a little bit more why, and we go like, oh, you're not, I don't want to say you're not crazy, because well, maybe I do, but it validates it a bit more of like, yeah, that was not the right fit for you. And I think he needed to see, like what Ted said is, you know, people are different people, or whatever the quote was. I might be quoting a song, but like, just because you had this one experience doesn't mean that's how every therapist is. Just everybody's different, and
there's
I think
good ones and bad ones out there too. Like,
exactly, because there's good people and bad people, and then thereby there are great therapists and terrible therapists, and you got to find the one for you. And my former therapist, who I had the best, I mean, she was the best fit for me, reminds me so much of the one on the show. So every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, I miss her. So just it's nice.
I mean, in these therapy, getting your doctorate, someone had to come in last in the class. Like,
you know?
I mean, that's true. It's very true. Let's see. Yeah, so
I often wonder about that with doctors and things. It's like someone there got all D's and still passed. Like,
I mean,
that's scary.
Well, and also everyone has a bad day at work.
Yeah, true.
It's true. Now, this is gonna be a weird segue, but I enjoyed the Tom Cruise little tiny ponytail jokes.
I also wrote down the Tom Cruise ponytail joke because it also felt like a very Bill Lawrence joke to throw that in there. It's something he noticed while watching a movie or something, was like, why did Tom Cruise just have a teeny tiny ponytail for a few years? I just loved the way he played, and I just love how Beard just kind of ping pongs back and forth. Like, they have such great timing, the two of them together, which I think works really well with these jokes.
I just like the added descriptor there of little tiny. Not just like tiny ponytail or little ponytail, little tiny ponytail. Just makes it funnier for some reason. And then I liked Ted's joke where he's like, I'm more stumped than Paul Bunyan's local forest.
Yeah.
And then this,
I don't think it's written down by anyone. the quote from Nate when they're trying to talk about Dani, and he goes, "Let's just show him his fucking paycheck. That'll get him."
Oh yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. He's like, yeah,
Like,
maybe
holy.
that's a bit aggressive, mate. But that is a
that's-
reminder of like how much everyone's paid on this show, or like the characters on the show.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
the actors too, but the
Actors are
Well, it's
probably paid
also,
way
like,
less.
yeah, then
The third or
footballers
fourth
were-
time. It's like the third or fourth time that Nate has said something out of pocket in the episode,
Mhm.
something that made Ted kind of like frown his eyebrows in a way and was like, "Whoa, where did that come from?"
Right.
It's really like, I mean, it's subtly done, but it's done enough to show us, the audience, a pattern.
Yeah, it's almost like Nate is, like in the same way like a toddler or like a small kid is like kind of like or like I guess like a puppy or something. It's like testing boundaries of what they're allowed to do without getting in trouble for. It's almost Nate like, can I kind of, because I feel like, or like Nate's seemingly always been like seen through, so he doesn't really have like a barometer for like how he should be interacting with like these groups. So he's kind of testing. It's like, what level do I need to be at for how I'm like saying like jokes, or what I say that's going to be acceptable to these other people that I look up to around me.
I also think, separate from the kindness that Ted has shown him through the first season, Nate has a lot of anger built up.
Sorry.
Bonnie
You
about
got
died.
ghosts back there?
No, I don't know if it was like something moved in my. It might have been an earthquake. I don't know, but it
400
scared the
ghosts.
shit
Oh, wow.
out of me. We're good. Anyways,
I'm in LA. I'll let you know if I feel it.
It was
I am
Florence.
too. So that was weird. Okay. Anyways, sorry.
No,
We're
you're
good.
fine. I was just saying that it feels like Nate has a lot of anger kind of beneath the surface that he had from the way he was treated prior to his friendship with Ted, that despite the kindness that Ted shows him, that anger is still there. And it's going to, like, the resentment has kind of built up too long to the point where it needs an escape.
Yeah, it's almost
He's
got
never
like,
been in a place. Like, it's all the stuff he'd probably say to himself while washing the towels or organizing the shoes. And
yeah, he's almost got to like detoxify himself of like all that toxic stuff that's built
all that
up
black
inside
hair.
of him. Yeah. I guess, I mean, that's
all that hate is the black hair. It's going to slowly seep out of him.
It'll slowly become white. Yeah. So, and then like, this is like that scene with like we don't say the Y word out loud yet. It's like saying Macbeth in a theater, Voldemort at Hogwarts, or soccer in England. But yeah, like the whole.
But they say Voldemort at Hogwarts like all the time.
Yeah.
Because a baby beat him. Why would they be scared?
Yeah, like this guy got beat by a baby.
A child.
And that baby got a cool scar after. What?
Yeah.
It was like that. What? That's awesome.
And a book franchise, a film franchise.
Yeah. I realized that's like the third or fourth like Harry Potter reference on this show, though, between season 1 and season 2. And although at least they did talk
when in England.
I mean, they did at least talk about offing J.K. Rowling in season 1, though, too, in that one episode. So at least
Not for reasons you'd expect, but
yeah, it kind of just, I mean, so that Flo could write the books instead.
I would argue that a majority of Americans have mostly heard British accents through the Harry Potter films. I think it's it may be more of a commentary on like the writers writing about England culture and what they know about it to try to
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Harry Potter,
very,
The
very true.
Office. Or no, actually, they probably more.
No, I wouldn't even say
the
the
U.S. Office. Yeah, but
you can go with Gold 007 maybe, but
oh yeah,
maybe
that's true. Which speaking of 007, really quick, Pierce Brosnan's going to be in a movie with Hannah Waddingham, so that should be cool. So,
Pierce Bronson's still being Pierce Bronson? I did not know.
Yeah, apparently he's going to have his Irish accent in it too, so that'll be cool.
Right.
Hannah
Oh
Waddingham.
boy.
I'll watch
Still
that.
a stud.
Listen, all I wanted was just a Dr. Fate movie with Pierce Brosnan. If I could just have that,
Yeah,
that's
was the
all
best
I
part.
want.
That was the best
He
part
was.
of Black Adam. Was just get rid of Black Adam. and
Just make a
have
Dr. Fate movie.
and just
Give the
change-
people what
change-
they want.
delete the word Black Adam and write Dr. Fate instead, and just make it Dr. Fate with Black Adam also in this movie.
That's all I want. It's just a Dr. Fate movie. But he was great in that. And I was like, he can still get it. That's all.
He can still get it.
Is this an argument for the Snyderverse?
No. Well, that might bring us onto a different tangent.
I'll just mute myself.
We'll get there when we get there.
Well, speaking of, there's a Hamilton reference in the pub, guys.
Yeah, I saw that too. And I was like, "What, that Hamilton?" Because they seemed like they rewrote the lyrics a little bit, but it felt like Hamilton when I heard it.
Yeah, I like that one's like a little bit more subtle than some of the other like musical theater references that they make on the show, where it's basically just doing the like basically the I'm trying to think of the right word for it, like the. Can
I tell you how I feel a second?
Yeah.
Put your beer down. Tell me how you feel. Something like that. I forget what they say exactly, but that was that cadence.
Yeah, that's the worst. I think it was cadence. But yeah, like that, I just like the whole thing. I was like, man, I feels like that's like I do like stuff. I would do stuff like that with Mike, with like movie quotes maybe, but like like spinning them to like. So I just like that kind of like barometer or not barometer. I'm tired.
Thermometer?
Thermometer. What?
That's a Seinfeld joke.
The back and forth there between Beard and Ted with like the kind of like a short slang between each other for stuff like that.
I also think that Hamilton is such a time capsule to a very specific point of time that in like decades from now, we're going to like look back and someone's going to quote Hamilton. You're going to be like, oh man, remember when we knew that whole play? Like it's going to be crazy.
True. Yeah.
And you're telling me I have to watch Hamilton to get the joke.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on Disney Plus.
It's true, but I'd rather see it live.
Yeah.
It's great either way.
It's great live.
I knew that I was probably going to have less of a chance to see it live than being able to watch it on Disney Plus. So I just watched it on Disney Plus. And then if I ever do get to see it live, then I get to see it live too.
I mean,
this is a quick side.
They
should make more stage musicals available that are filmed with the original.
100% agree.
But they don't release them to the public.
They need to. That's a whole other revenue of money they can make.
They know
people that can't go to see them.
It also helps to make a new generation of musical theater lovers. Like there's a lot of benefits to it.
The way that the US does this stuff is really weird, as opposed to theater out there on the West End is far more accessible, far more affordable than it is out here. When I was out there, I was going to see shows a couple times that week and getting better seats than I had ever had out here in the States. And like 6th row center for Phantom of the Opera for what would cost to sit all the way in the back of the theater in New York, the only other times I've seen it. And then like 2nd row for Les Mis, like these shows that are big that have been around forever. But but they do film them, but they don't always release them. And sometimes it's about rights and it's about other stuff. But it's a whole thing.
I will say, if you're a fan of the way Hamilton was filmed, Disney has Newsies, which is filmed very similarly and is pretty well done.
And I think Netflix had Shrek the musical for a while.
Shrek the musical is good. Don't sleep on it. It is terrific. It's far funnier than you think it is. And everybody's like, you're not going to like, people don't think they're going to like it. And then they watch it and they go, oh, this is good. And it's like, yeah, I freaking told you. Duh.
Yeah.
Shrek.
That's right.
People only listen to me, but it's fine. It's fine.
We listen to you. That's why you're on the show.
True.
I see what you did there, Mike. Before we move past the pub, there's a thing in there where May said that Shane, what happened to Earl? Him and his owner Nigel used to come in here all the time until he started shitting and pissing all over the place. And Ted's like, yeah, no, that's pretty common with older dogs. She's like, no, I'm talking about Nigel. I like this show, like in that same scene, they're talking about like Ted's apprehension about like therapy, but then they're like making like a poop joke like a minute before that. And I was like, this show knows how to switch tones really easily, and it doesn't feel like whiplash. It feels like natural and normal too, because then you go from that to like to Beard saying the all people are different people, and Ted's like, I said that? That's pretty good. So it's like that whole like, it's like that weaving through that whole entire scene there is just go Hamilton reference, poop joke, therapy.
Yeah. On paper, it shouldn't work, but the way it's written and the way it's performed, the timing of the jokes and the chemistry between the two actors, it feels very balanced. It doesn't feel like the comedy is coming from nowhere. It all feels like a realistic conversation, very West Wing in the way that they're talking to each other, with just kind of like jumping from topic to topic and not really just staying on one topic the entire time. It feels more natural the way they communicate. And so when they finally do land on something that's more poignant, it doesn't feel out of nowhere because they've been ping-ponging back and forth between different conversations already.
Yeah. And then so like after this scene too, we get Dani kind of brought it up earlier where Roy is on that double date with Keely and Rebecca, and was it 10 Wings Night, or no, Wayne or something. It's like his last name is Wings Night, and I like how Ted makes it. It's like, oh, it's like Wings Night at such a barbecue place. But yeah, or
do they have Wings Night in England?
I think there's a Wingstop is like a
that doesn't count.
I mean, I don't know, but I mean that's probably. I mean, they have kebabs there, but that's also doesn't count. There's probably some kind of wing option there. I'm sure it's different than like what it'd be, like in upstate New York where like Buffalo Wings originated from, but there's definitely a wings option of some variety.
They probably have a Buffalo Wild Wings over there.
Yeah.
Or Chili's or an Applebee's.
I feel like KFC is everywhere. I feel like sometimes I'll see video footage from countries that I didn't know had fast food, and there will be a KFC there. They're worldwide.
KFC is huge in the UK for some reason.
I was going to say something about Japan. I think they make more money there than they do other places.
It's probably just like a random like different kind of like delicacy there, because it's like just so different from like the food from that area each time that it's like some fried chicken in Japan, but with so
you can have French fry birthday parties in Japan or something like that at McDonald's.
I mean, French fry birthday party sounds awesome.
One of my friends has family in the Middle East, and she was saying that for their birthday they'll go to KFC because it's such a big deal there. Because it's like such a unique like American thing, and it's actually quite expensive, more so than like street food that we would probably prefer. We would probably look at that food and go, wow, that's higher quality than KFC. But to them, they're like, no, KFC is it.
That's a mutant chicken you're eating. They're not supposed to be that big.
And because that chicken is fine, just like most people are fine. So like that whole like speech that Roy has to Rebecca there, like
that's it. Nothing wrong with that. Most people are fine. It's not about him. It's about why the fuck you think he deserves you. You deserve someone that makes you feel like you've been struck by fucking lightning. Don't you dare settle for 5.
Like that you deserve someone that makes you feel like you've been struck.
Oh yeah.
And that she shouldn't settle for fine. And that becomes like a huge line from the show too. And then I like how he ends it. Is like, not that it's any of my business. But yeah, I like that, and I like there's this like subtle like cut to Keely there too when he's saying that, where you can see like she's like, all right, cool, I made a good choice. This guy's a good dude.
But also I think she's thinking he feels that way about me if he's saying that.
Yeah.
That's how he feels about me. That's how I read that.
Yeah. That's true.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, it also feels like, even though Rebecca tells Ted, sometimes girls just talk to talk, it also feels like, not that she was wanting a solution, but she was like trying to like see how she felt about him every time, almost looking for validation to be like, yeah, he's nice, right? Like he's a good guy, right? Like he's a catch, right? Like she wanted to hear that to try to offset some of the things that she was feeling that I think Roy brought out of her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he looks good on paper.
Yeah, which that's like a I'm gonna come back sure and see, but it's a better segue to go to like where Rebecca's then at another date with him by herself, and she's basically thinking back to like what Roy said, and she says this thing out loud, not even like meaning to kind of, in saying it, break up with him. But she's like, dating is so odd, isn't it? I mean, we're all strangers essentially. So, I mean, how is it ever possible to truly feel safe with someone? I suppose you can't. You know, my friend Flo once told me that intimacy was all about leaving yourself open to being attacked. Isn't that horrible? I mean, it does make you realize how scary it is, allowing yourself to be intimate again. I mean, you really do have to be brave, and that's it right there, isn't it? I need to be brave enough to let someone wonderful love me without fear of being hurt, without fear of being safe. So, especially for her, like having like within that past year gone through a divorce, and like her relationship with how it was with Rupert, she's had like this whole trauma based off of that in herself, and then we'll eventually find out like this whole trauma she has built in from her dad and what he did to her mom by like cheating on her mom and stuff. So she's already kind of has that built into it, but I liked that in there because I mean feel like if once you do have something like that happen, it is going to be hard to kind of like, you almost have to feel comfortable enough about yourself again before you can feel like you can do something where you move on to that, or feel like you can. Yeah.
I can speak to this.
Yeah.
having
you're,
done it.
Yeah, you're at that point.
I'm a little past that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what I mean.
Yeah, like and it was very different for me than the first time I saw it, because I wasn't at that point when I saw this, but I thought Roy's speech was 100% right, because somebody can be good for you on paper in every single way possible, but that doesn't mean they're the right fit for you in whatever that means. I don't necessarily believe in like, there's only one person for you. I think there's different people for you, maybe at different points in your life. And if you get lucky, you can ride it out with one person, but statistically that isn't everybody's case. And I thought it was a very interesting way of looking at Rebecca's trying to keep herself safe. So she goes with a safe option who's nice and it's everything on paper, but it's missing the thing. And if she's getting bored while she's out and she's in her head while she's with this guy, maybe that's not the guy.
Yeah.
And she's looking at everybody else there. There's that couple on that date who was on their phone. Then there was the couple who was like having the wine together and looking happy. And then there was the one lady who was sitting by herself, and it was all the different possibilities.
Yeah.
And that kind of made her go like, oh yeah, okay. And you're maybe not going to get it right out the gate after a divorce like I didn't. And she took time and she's getting back out there. My therapist told me to do that, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But my therapist was like, no, go. And I was like, fine, okay. And I took,
an adventure.
Kind of. I was like, all right, I guess, and I got very lucky with my, who I'm dating now. And it is one of those things. You should be with somebody that makes you feel like you were struck by lightning. And I think that's, but Rebecca's journey is very interesting. And it is, you want to say like, if I just don't let anybody in, I can keep myself safe, but you don't live that way. Like what? And you can't guarantee that you're not going to get hurt or that people aren't going to leave you. I went through that in my own journey, and I was like, well, what if I get hurt again? My therapist is like, then you get hurt again, but you'll be okay. You've survived everything thus far. If you get hurt again, you get hurt again. That's part of it. There are no guarantees. All you can guarantee is that you're going to be okay. So I think I put in the notes, like, I don't necessarily agree with Rebecca in that idea, but she's starting to get it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see that.
Well, one of my favorite things that Roy was saying, when he's kind of telling her how he thought of the double date, was that like, why the fuck would you want to be with him? Like in this idea of like, you're extraordinary. Like, it's okay that he's fine, but you're kind of like more than that. And, Bonnie was kind of joking with me earlier how she felt like, Topanga was too good for Corey. But that idea that like, you are who you date. And so you kind of have to be careful, because if you date someone that, isn't going where you want to go or isn't the kind of person that you want to be, they can have a profound influence on you and your life's decisions. So it's really important to kind of like make sure that you're in it when you get into these relationships, because they play such a huge role in the outcome of your life in so many ways.
Yep, 100%. And it's like something else I saw. It said you can tell how much, and this is kind of going around on TikTok and social media, so pardon me if you've heard it, but it says you can tell how much a person loves themselves by who they've chosen as their partner. And I think that is very interesting. Whether it's true or not, it depends on the person. But I think it's very interesting because it's made me go, huh, shit, when I look back at some things.
I think it was true for Rebecca in that moment. You know, one of my favorite things about that scene is that she's just kind of talking about fear and intimacy and dating. There's not even a, hey, I want to break up with you. But as she starts talking, her date realizes that they don't have that together. So he interprets this as a breakup. There's no like, hey, I want to break up with you. He's just like, oh, we're clearly not that. Like, I don't feel that way to you. You don't feel that way to me. So we're done, right? Thanks for the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Let me keep talking about Stomp.
Stomp. I think I saw Stomp when I was in the UK, like back in 2006. But
wow,
yeah, like
I saw Stomp in New York in like high school, and honestly, it was a great time.
Yeah, I bought drumsticks.
We were supposed to see Stomp or Lion King in high school. Then 9/11 happened. So
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
yeah, that'll cancel some shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to travel more than 2 hours away from our location. So we went to Niagara Falls, American side, and went to Hard Rock Cafe, and it was boring.
Yep.
Oh, man. Yeah,
you'll never be able to separate 9/11 from the Hard Rock Cafe ever again.
That's fair. It's fair.
So speaking of having to deal with trauma, so this is where Dr. Sharon enters the picture in this episode. She has had that question. She's like, I don't want the humility. Are you good at your job? And he just says yes. She's like, well, as good as you are at your job, twice as good at mine. And I like how that like that Beard's like thank you for coming here. And then and then after she leaves, she's like, she seems fun. So like I like the way he's like acting two different ways, like in front and not in front of her. But I like how they introduce her in this episode, because she's not in a lot of it. She's kind of like in the background a lot in the episode, and you kind of see like how she interacts with them differently with all of them. And it's like kind of throwing Ted off, just like how she's like just kind of just like observing and like just, you know, not like in this, like she's got a very different personality than Ted basically with so he's trying to just kind of like figure her out from that, which is I think is interesting. And then just the way that she's able to help Dani in this, and you see how like she said, she's how good she is at her job, where like she's speaking fluent Spanish to Dani, and then Zero goes in there later. She's speaking fluent French to Zero. We get a little bit more Colin in that too, and you see that Colin's getting helped out by her. So I like that you're getting like, you know, a little bit more of like these characters with her, and we see like some of these characters that are needing to go to her for more help, and like how Ted actually already has kind of helped them in a way, because I feel like some of these same characters that are going to talk to her and maybe in season 1 might not have felt like they could, or like, you know, like we were kind of talking about earlier, like because of like how kind of like, at least I think it's that kind of that way in the UK too, but like how like in at least a society where like how it's like portrayed like you're weak, like as a man or someone that identifies as a man, like if you feel like you're not like, if you're like over empathetic, or you cry about stuff, or you're like you just get overly like quote unquote sad about things or whatever. But like where like Colin, like how he in season 1 is like kind of like overcompensating to try to like, you know, pick on Nate and all of that stuff in there too. And, like, we know he's got like the huge sports car, so he's just like trying to like project like this image of himself that might not necessarily be the image of himself that he actually is. And then we know like Zero's going in there. So I just think that's, even though Ted thinks that he's not necessarily helping these guys, I think he already has enough where he's gotten them to the place where they feel like they can go to talk to Sharon, Dr. Sharon. And
I think it's more Ted, like the Hay jealousy was a metaphor.
Oh, yeah. That.
For Ted and his feelings of his guys going to see this outsider versus coming to him. Because he's so against her.
I have a theory for this, which is,
absolutely.
First of all, I love Sharon and how she is just, you know, Ted has so much charm to him. It's so easy for him to win over everyone in the room, except for Sharon. Sharon sees Ted. She sees the charm as like the armor for his whatever baggage he has. She sees him in a way that makes him so uncomfortable because he's kind of confronted with this idea of, oh, this is a person I can't use my charm on. And I think that especially when Ted sees the other characters going to Sharon, after seeing like what an impact it had on Rojas to spend time with her, he realizes, wow, this woman's been able to provide them something I'm not able to give them in so many ways. Like, yeah, he's been giving them great advice in season 1, but he can only give them the advice from his perspective. And I think he's starting to see that his perspective is a bit more limited now that she's been introduced.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to be said is if you're one of those people, you want to help everybody as much as you can. And sometimes it can be because you're distracting yourself from your own problems, and there's labels for that. There's nothing wrong with calling in somebody who is better equipped and better professionally able to handle things, because as a friend, you can only do so much. As a coach, you can only do so much. And the fact that they are bringing in this character to help in the ways that Ted maybe isn't necessarily equipped to do so, I think is a big deal.
Yeah. It's so interesting because Ted is like the first person to have like a gab sesh. Like he's the person to like get everyone in the room and just have almost like a group therapy session. Like he's fine talking to his friends, but it's almost as if he's a little afraid to know what's on the other side of the door when it comes to seeing a therapist and speaking to someone who might have that kind of insight.
Yeah,
It's true. And yeah, we'll find out just with like his whole thing with his mom of like how he's kind of probably taken part of that on because like his mom deflected all of that stuff, so he had to like try to figure it out himself. So it's almost like a defense mechanism for himself, being like he's got to be able to handle it and fix it himself at this point. And then so the last thing that happens in this episode, Roy is at the yoga mom's house and they're all watching Lust Conquers All, and here comes Jamie Tart. And what's funny there is that like Roy thinks that all the yoga moms were like, yeah, they're gonna roast this guy, and then they're like, oh, I just love him. He's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, he gets a little seething and gets more rosé and bites his tongue a little, you can tell.
Well, it also comes directly after having the conversation with Keely where she's like, I'm sorry that I was pushing this job on you. And clearly Roy has been really hesitant to accept this role as a sports pundit. But in that moment, you kind of see like him almost have a moment of thinking, well, what's my alternative? Watching my former teammate on a live reality television show, like what am I doing with my life in that moment? To me, it almost felt like a little bit more than just that, oh, Jamie again. It felt like a little bit more of a what's my next move from Roy's perspective.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with him there. So from talking about like the overall plot of it, the don't call back, call forward segment. The only thing I had in there was we saw those couples again that Rebecca's looking around and sees in the coffee shop. I believe maybe again in this season in the Rainbow episode, that's like the rom-com episode with Roy. But then we also see him again in season 3. but then Ted says, what you talking about, Willis, to Beard, and now we know that's Beard's actual name. So, just like I forgot that came from this episode, but I was like, oh, that all the way back season 2, episode 1 was when we learned Beard's name, and we did not know that was Beard's name at that time. And then other than that, the soundtrack in this one was the Wise Up by Amy Mann. When Rebecca's got the second thoughts about John, when she breaks up with him, and then Life is Life for the closing credits, which is a very Dani Rojas song, which I liked that in there. Yeah, football is death, football is life, but football is also football. And I looked up the lyrics to the because Ted said that the June Blossom song "Follow You Down" was his favorite one. I was like, oh, I was like, I feel like this Ted is thinking about Michelle with this song a little bit from the lyrics in this song still. But other than that, I don't have anything else unless you guys have anything else you want to bring up before we wrap out for the episode.
The only other thing I had, I had watched the season 1 finale right before I watched the season 2 premiere, because I wanted to kind of remind myself of what was going on. And in addition to there being the reference of the goldfish, when they're trying to test Dani, his abilities before they bring in the therapist, Ted tells them to run Midnight Poutine, which is one of the secret plays that they talked about
I did
in the
catch
finale.
that, yes.
So.
Still have not seen Loki's toboggan.
Although Midnight Poutine makes more sense now, just because it seems like the poutine's like a reference to Zero, and because it seems like it's like a kick, like a corner kick move. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. That poutine would be a reference to Zero, who's Canadian there, but because I don't think they like showed.
He's the one who says it. I'm pretty sure. He's the one who suggests.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That is.
I was going to say that would make sense that Zero would be the one saying if it's poutine, because it's a very
because he says it and then Beard's dish. Like it's not dirty. Something like that.
Which the day we're recording this is Canada Day, so happy Canada Day, Zero.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. But where can people find you online, Tony?
Oh, well, first off, thank you guys for having me. I had such a great time talking about the podcast. You could join me and my co-host Siege as we watch through the television show Boy Meets World. We're actually wrapping up the last season now, so we're getting into the final episode, so you guys can jump in there. We've also done several interviews with the cast of Boy Meets World on their podcast Pod Meets World, so you can check out some of our interviews with the cast there. And we have a YouTube page as well, so you guys can catch video episodes of all of our podcasts.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yay!
And Tony's favorite episode, I believe, was As Time Goes By.
Oh, my least favorite episode of that show ever, yeah.
Yeah. And then for us, you can find us on Richmond Way Pod.
Here, there, everywhere.
Yeah. You can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/The Richmond Way. That episode with Mary Roscoe, aka Julie Higgins, is still up there early for Patreon subscribers. We also got
other spicy goodness.
Yeah, there's some sidelined scenes as it were, aka deleted scenes.
You want to see me fight somebody? That might be there.
Yeah, Tony, if you want to hear Bonnie talk more about the Snyderverse and Man of Steel, one of the
absolutely
the extra scenes there is
good
Bonnie
20-minute
and our friend Kenny talking about Man of Steel. So it's a cracking good conversation.
Oh my gosh!
And then
that's me. Speaking
of Bonnie, you can find Bonnie at vosuperhero.com for all of your voiceover superhero needs. Yeah.
Whistle!
Cool.
Whistle!
Oh.
That time.
So that means that's going to do it for the Richmond Way. We thank you again, Tony, for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Loved being here. If you guys ever need someone to come back in the future, let me know. I would love to hop back on.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
We will take you up on that offer, and we will send you messages forthwith. So
awesome. Great.
So until next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye. So until next time, folks, be curious, not judgmental, and keep rewatching. This is Ted Lasso signing off. As the man once said, the harder you work, the luckier you get.